So I'm really, really happy to also be up here and introduce to you your next speaker, who I've had the opportunity to get to know over the last couple of years, who is transforming a different slice of life that's just as critical to how you live and work and breathe and be educated as anything else. First Lady Sarah Stitt is the First Lady of Oklahoma, and she is the co-founder of Hope Rising Oklahoma and the Sarah Stitt Hope Foundation. As First Lady of Oklahoma, Sarah's working to utilize her resources and position to advocate those suffering from mental health issues and adverse childhood experiences. And she's got a powerful story because she knows from when she speaks. She experienced some of these things herself, which she'll share with you. She's dedicated to rising hope around all Oklahomans, not just through her foundation, but across the country. And she's been married to Kevin Stitt since 1998. And they're the mother of she's the mother of 6 children. And you'll see Governor Stitt will be here later on this afternoon as well. He's one of the champions, as so many people are, of education opportunity. When we were talking earlier, before I bring up First Lady Stitt, about hope, I realized so many schools have hope in the name. So many schools have hope in the mission. And so the core of what we do is not just a word, it's actually how you execute on hope. So without further ado, First Lady Stitt.
Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. I really appreciate it. Honestly, I always get a little nervous when I'm coming into situations like this because I feel slightly underqualified to be in a room with so many successful companies and representatives of our different communities across the nation. So I'm excited and honored to be invited to this, so thank you very much for the invitation. And I'll start a little bit to tell you just a bit of my story. I was married to my husband. We were in business for 20 years in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I had never lived anywhere different. And we had worked really hard to build a company that was community-minded. It was a place where people wanted to work, and it gave our employees and our partners in our company, we wanted them to have a really balanced life. And we recognized the things that we had employed in our own life of setting goals and strategies and making sure that you didn't require from your employee more than they had to give. And so we had this wonderful mindset and built this amazing company. And then one morning at about 4:30 in the morning, my husband's moving around, and I'm slightly irritated because we have a lot of little kids, and I'm thinking, why am I getting up earlier than I need to? And he said, there's something I really need to tell you. And really, to put it in perspective, he always had something exciting to tell me. So I was thinking, oh my goodness, what idea are we going to do next? What's the new company he has an idea for, a new way to branch out? But yeah, in the moment, I felt like this is a serious moment, and your mind begins to race. And he said, I really feel like I'm supposed to run for governor. That was not what I was expecting. And in those moments, I employed every bit of my good spousal knowledge, and I threw all of his insecurities at his feet to try to convince him that that was not the right thing to do. I mentioned things like, well, you don't like to speak in front of people. And he said, yes, I know that. And I said, you'll have to leave your company. And he said, yes, I know that. And I said, what about the family? He said, yes, I know that. And he said, I have been wrestling with this for a very long time, but I just can't shake the feeling that this is something I'm supposed to do. And so I begged and implored him to please not to tell one other person, because I thought, okay, if I can keep this a secret, then maybe I can convince him that there's something else in our future. And so over the next several months, we really committed to pray and look at this through a different lens. And he would come home almost every night with these crazy statistics, like, did you know we're the lowest in education across the nation? Did you know we incarcerate more women than anywhere else in the world? And every time I would say, yes, honey, I've grown up here. Do you not watch the 6 o'clock news? But what I realized with him is over the last 20 years that we had worked hard to build our company, he had been so focused on his goals and the things he knew he could accomplish that he had not realized the rest of Oklahoma wasn't like our company and what we had built. And as he began to go across the country, as our company grew and grew, he began to look at other states and realize the opportunity, the hope was not in Oklahoma. And that hit him hard because he had been born and raised in Oklahoma, and we had worked so hard to build our lives there. And we had, as was mentioned before, 6 children, and we were looking at Oklahoma through this lens of our children's future, and we realized it was dim. So over the course of time, we decided this was the right choice, and he was elected. And people began to ask me, well, what are you going to talk about? What's important to you? And for a long time, I had used my own personal story within my circles, within my community, to help others. And as I began to talk about poverty and addiction and mental health and lack of resources, lack of education, people would come up to me every time and say, I'm part of that community. I have a family member that struggled with mental illness. I have a dad that took his own life. I have a daughter that's addicted. And I began to realize, even on a bigger spectrum, that Oklahoma needed hope. And as I began to look across our state and really be overwhelmed about where to start, I began to do research on what could we do, because every state has generational cycles and struggles with statistics, but Oklahoma was at the top and bottom of places we didn't want to be. But my husband had thrown out there that he wanted to be a top 10 state in things like education, business opportunity, everything. And so as we were working towards these goals, I began to look around and go, how can we raise the hope in Oklahoma? How can we make Oklahomans pick up their head from survival mode and look into the future and believe that they can have a better future? And through that process, I came across Dr. Chan Hellman out of OU Hope Research Center. And Dr. Hellman had been daring enough to study hope and positive things and goal setting for the last 20 years. And he had come up with hope as a science and a strategy, not the hope that you're thinking about, like, I hope it doesn't rain today, I hope my kid does good on his test, but an actual strategy to life. And the way I can explain it best is if you're raised in an environment that doesn't teach you how to get up every day and set goals to achieve, like go to school every day, like wake up and realize that you can move from 2nd grade to 3rd grade and on in your life. But if you're raised in an environment, like many Oklahomans, that's survival mode, like how do I make it through my day, and not even having the ability to focus that there could be a future, you do not know how to set goals, and you do not know how to create pathways, and you sure don't have the willpower or the resources to get to those goals. So as I began to move through Oklahoma and talk about the science of hope and how we raise the hope scores in our state, I was met with community members from the business community, from the nonprofit community, from the juvenile incarceration system, from the education system that said, we want this in our community. And we began to teach the science of hope across all of these sectors. And we have seen the hope scores rise. But more than anything, what we have seen is that Oklahomans are no longer accepting themselves as a statistic, much like I thought that my life would never be out of that generational cycle of poverty and addiction and mental health issues. But as I realized when I stepped into the world, and I had a few amazing mentors in my life that showed me my life didn't have to repeat the cycles that my family had fallen victim to, I began to realize there was a future and there was hope. And that's what we want for our state. And hope is defined in 3 steps. It's creating a goal, identifying a pathway towards that goal, and having the willpower to achieve that goal. And as corporate America begins to realize we need to create environments and partner with our communities to have a healthy workforce and healthy communities, like we realized in our company, we couldn't just push people to work harder, do better, and achieve the corporate goals without looking at their lives and helping them set goals professionally, but also relationally and with their family. And as we began to do that, we saw our corporate strategy change. We created an environment that was healthy and wanted by all of our employees. And I think this mindset is really going across the nation as we look for a healthier and happier and more balanced workforce. The great thing about the science of hope is it can be measured, taught, and sustained. And you do not have to have a PhD to do that. And most of us, as we identify our goals and we decide how we're going to reach that goal, then we're able to get the willpower and the community resources to achieve that. And that's what we've worked so hard to teach within our state. And it's this thought process that's so inherent to my husband's thought of really helping our state move out of where it's at. And we have worked really hard over the last 4 years to create this environment. He invited me to present to his cabinet, and we have really put a stake in the ground and said that Oklahoma is going to become the first hope-centered state. And it started from the top. And we know in corporate America that if we can start with these languages and these thought processes, it is going to trickle down into the employees as well as into the families and the children. And what we want to do for these businesses and for our community is to create an atmosphere that says you can achieve, we are going to partner with you, and there is a future in our state. And we want to provide equal opportunity, just like Janine was talking, to everyone. And educational choice is a big part of that. And what I like to say to people is educational choice should not be for the people like me that can afford to send their children wherever they want. It should be for the people like my parents, that if someone would have said, you can send your children to the school of your choice, they would have opted for that. Because guess what? My parents didn't allow us to go to school. I was not allowed to be in the public school system or the private school system because my parents had a very bad experience with that. And out of their own fear and lack of knowledge, they didn't allow us to even attend school. So guess what that did? That took away some of the most meaningful, probably adult relationships that I would have had and mentorships. So again, we don't realize that many of our communities are struggling with this, and it's a big deal to be able to get educational choice and freedom across the finish line in our state, and we're so happy and excited about that. And I really want to wrap up. I think I'm going a little long, but I want to wrap up by saying we can take charge of what is going on within our communities. We can use our corporate knowledge and our corporate abilities to link arms with our communities and create an environment that leads to a healthier, more balanced community, but as well as a healthier and more balanced corporate America. And we're super excited about the changes we're seeing and partnering with people across the nation. And I just want to thank you all for coming today and recognizing the things that you can do to improve your own sphere of influence and create hope and a positive future in your own businesses and your own communities today. Thank you so much.